The games that truly started or defined the genres of gaming that you love. Hi everybody, welcome back to Daily Gamer Opinion. I am Joe the Widget. I have been studying video games all my life. The history of video games is a big deal to me. I'm a designer. It's what I do. I have to know where we came from, to know where we're going. I know video game history very, very well. I could probably write a book on it, not to brag or anything. But let me see here. I got a whole bunch of notes that I did from memory and a little bit of research, but mostly all memory. So let's see how this goes. If I'm incorrect in some of my dates or whatever, let me know in the comments. But I want to talk about what started the genres of gaming that we love so much. And let's get started with the very first genre that really defined what video games are today, and that's the RPG, that role-playing game. It was originally defined as an adventure game, but then later was redefined as an RPG, or role-playing. And this one can date back as early as 1968 with the first text-based university games. Now, they're not really considered originators, or there's two different categories we're looking at here. The originator, which is the game that was technically the first game of that genre, and then the one that really defined that genre. So we'll talk about both. An RPG, I really wouldn't give the originator credit to any of those early text-based ones. I'm talking about games that were mass-produced for a public use. And the very first one that was really publicly first produced, that was RPG, and considered one of the first mass-produced video games of credit, was Zork. You can probably hear about it in multiple different movies, things of that nature. And it was released by Infocom in 1979. I remember that one very well because that's the year of my birth. It was a text-based RPG, and it was one of the more popular mass-produced ones. But the one that really defined the RPG genre was King's Quest. That came out in 1984 for the Apple II, and I want to say the IBM PC Junior. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember anyway. King's Quest is a phenomenal game. Again, text-based. It was later given a graphic interface, so it actually became a graphic-based game. It was a graphic-based game with text as your commands. That was one of the more expensive games ever produced until modern times, and it cost $700,000. It was written by Roberta Williams, and I believe it took 5 to 6 programmers to make. Now, keep in mind that the Atari 2600 took one programmer 1 week on average to make the game, with a total of about $200 in cost, between $200 to $300, which was just basically the salary of the guy who programmed the game. Thus created the big crash of video gaming, but we're not going to get into that. That's a whole different story. You guys want to know about the crash of video gaming and how it got rebirthed? Put in the comments below. I'll be glad to do a video on it if I don't bore you to death with this one. Alright, so RPGs. Originator, Zork. The one that really defined that genre, King's Quest. The first genre of video gaming. You can quote me on that. The next one to talk about is the fighter. It's not the second oldest by any stretch of the means, but it is one of the more popular genres that ever come out. Now, later genres didn't really start coming into fruition until the hardware technology was able to, allow for more graphic representation and more, creativity and design. The fighter. Now, some will argue that the originator of the fighter was karate for the Atari 2600, which came out in 1983 or 82. But everyone agrees that the one that really that defined that genre and made it what it is was Street Fighter 2. Super Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2. Originally came out as an arcade. It was produced by Capcom in 1991. There are 3 games that really defined the genre we know today in the fighter. Street Fighter 2, which I'm gonna give Origin credit to that. Even though I know it's not the Origin game, but I'm gonna give it that credit. It's the one that really is what we define as a fighter today. But the one that really introduced us to M-rated games and gaming was Mortal Kombat. Much love, Mortal Kombat. Much love. Love that genre. I love fighters. The third one that really defined what we know of fighters today was Killer Instinct. It was the first game to introduce the combo system. A real combo system, not just button mashing craziness. A combo system. Ultra combo! Love it! If you don't know that, it was amazing. Walking into arcade and hearing that was incredible. But that was your fighters. The next one that came out around the same time that really became a genre at the same time as fighters was the strategy game, or RTS, real-time strategy. Now, the originator is at question. I think, though, in this case, the originator and the one that defined the genre is the same game. And I believe that any video game historian or longtime designer would agree that Sid Meier's Civilization is both the originator and the one that defined the genre. Some people, it used to be called Grand Strategy, but that genre later got changed to RTS, or real-time strategy. And that came out in 1991 for MS-DOS, for PCs. Obviously, it was developed by Sid Meier, which then got picked up by another company. But it was a defining game for the strategy games. I'm not a big fan of them. My buddy Justin is. He can tell you all about Civilization. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here, because this genre had its roots very, very, very early on in its originator game, but didn't become a genre until 2005. So it's one of the newer ones. That and Survival are two newest gaming genres. But the reason I'm talking about it now is because it originated in Japan in 1987 with a game called Dance Aerobics by Nintendo. I don't know if Dance Aerobics came to the US. I believe it did. Not sure, though. I have to check on that. But that's the one that really was the originator of the music game. But the one that really defined what we know of the music genre today was Guitar Hero. I give it dual credit. Papa the Rapper and Guitar Hero are the ones that defined what we know of the music genre. They came out around the same time, around 2005, 2006, for the PlayStation 2, and was produced by Harmonix. At least that's what Guitar Hero was produced by. I don't remember what Papa the Rapper was. I hated that game with a passion, I still do. I'm not a fan of the music genre. I have no music inkling in my body at all. But the second oldest genre would be the platformer. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate about the origin title for it. My money is all on Pitfall for the Atari 2600. It came out in 1983, right before the crash of the video game industry. But the game that really brought back the industry, and the system that brought it back, was the Famicom, aka Nintendo, the entertainment system. The NES came out in 1985, but really didn't become popular in the US until 1986. Everyone knows Mario. Super Mario Brothers was the defining game for platformers. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on this at all, ever. It's one of the most iconic gaming characters ever. You cannot hear the Mario theme song and not know exactly what it is. You can't hear his jumping sound, his little 16-bit jumping sound, or his coin sound without knowing exactly who he is. Mario first made his appearance in Donkey Kong for the arcade in 1981. Then later got his own title for the Atari 2600 called the Mario Brothers, which included him and arguably Luigi, because it was two-player compatible, which involved you in one screen running up and down hitting Koopas and knocking them through pipes. Super Mario Brothers, though, they defined the platformer. And the platformer is your side-scrolling, jumping and going across the map. there's other ways you can define platformers, but it's now more what we call action-adventure. Platform is kind of a dead genre. It's now more action-adventure, which is like your Lara Croft, your Assassin's Creed, that kind of thing. The puzzle game, another early one that came out, but really didn't take effect until later on. Really didn't have a real grip until in the early 2000s. But it came out with another game that is super iconic, that if you heard the music, most of you out there would know what it is. And that would be Tetris. The Russian-made puzzle game. Where you had little bricks that you moved around and dropped down, and if you created a solid line, it disappeared. You had to get so many lines to win the level. Very creative. It originally came out for the IBM PC, but really didn't become popular and well known until it came out for the Game Boy. 1984. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit because some people would argue that the RTS could have been originated in 1990 with Herzog. I don't remember the other part of the name. I have to disagree. I say Sid Meier was it. Herzog was a lot like what we would call, a lot like StarCraft. But no, I don't know. That one's tough. It came out for Sega Genesis by Technosoft, but I would say that two games really defined it, not just Civilization, but I think maybe Dune 2 did too. And that came out in 1992 for MS-DOS. I believe the developer was Westwood. I could be wrong. If I am wrong on anything, guys, just comment below. Let me also recap. I'm rethinking this here because RPGs, the first real graphic represented RPG, what we know today, that we could really define as RPGs, I would say Ultima was the real defining RPG that really evolved it from the text-based, what it used to be, to the modern RPG that we know of today. So I'd have to give Ultima that credit. Not the origin, but definitely the big defining game for the RPG genre. Came out by Origin Systems. I don't remember the guy who designed it. I want to say Garriott, Richard Garriott. That seems right. Came out for the Apple II, and later produced for the PC. Sports genre. Oh yeah, the one genre that gets people playing games that don't ever normally play games. That's sports, and well, I don't think there's a question about the game that defined it, but there is question about what's considered the origin. And I have to say Pong. And the reason why sports genre is not the oldest genre is because text-based RPGs came out in, like I said, 1968. Well, not really come out, but they were mass-produced early 70s. But it's a gray area. But Pong, 1972, arcade, Atari. Duh, everyone knows that. Pong was your ball going between two paddles. It could be defined as a sports game, but I'm iffy on that one. But the one that really defined the genre without question, in anyone's mind, came out in 1988, Madden Football. Well, back then it was John Madden Football, and it was one of EA's first real titles. And it came out for the Commodore 64 and Apple II originally, with little 8-bit men that simulated football. I don't even think they had a full team. I think it was just having 11 players. Yeah, it was 11 players in each team. I remember that was a big issue. Now moving on to one of my all-time favorite genres. Another one with a lot of controversy, I'd have to say, is the fighter. Now, the origin is where the controversy is at. Again, this is one of those things where a game could be defined as that, but really doesn't have any foothold on what fighters are today. Some people will say that the originator was Battlezone, that came out in 1980 for the arcade, and it was produced by Atari. It was a vector-based, but it was more vehicle combat. That's why I can't say it's the originator of shooters. It's originator of vehicle combat, sure. No question. But not shooters. I'd say the real originator of the shooter would be Wolfenstein 3D. And that came out in the late 80s. Late 80s. I don't remember exactly when, but I give it to Wolfenstein 3D. But the game that really defined shooters is unquestionably and without doubt Doom. Came out in 1993 for MS-DOS by id Software, which is now owned by ZeniMax Studios, aka Bethesda. It's what really set the groundwork for what we know of a shooter today. Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, you name it, Battlefield. It's what really defined what we call a shooter. And then other ones came out in the same vein, Hexen, Heretic, all the good ones. I know my games. Alright, moving on. We're going to talk about survival horror, or the horror game. The originator, it was Alone in the Dark. It came out in 1992. It was definitely for PC, and it was, again, Infogrames. It was the one that really defined what a horror game is. It was 8-bit graphics, really, really creepy for its time, and scared a lot of people. But the game that really set the stage for what a horror game is without question, Resident Evil. Came out by Capcom for multiple platforms in 1996. Yeah. I'm pretty certain on those. And the turn-based strategy. Turn-based strategy is a little bit different than real-time strategy. And turn-based strategy is more of a dead genre now. There's not too many games for it. And the originator and the defining game for that was called XCOM UFO Defense. Came out in 1994 for MS-DOS. And that's it. A little brief history of where your favorite games came from. If you have any questions about it, want to hear more history of gaming, by all means, comment below. I'll be glad to do videos for you guys. Have a fantastic day and keep gaming, everybody. And that was my opinion. Well, not so much my opinion, but what I know of history.